Hello again and welcome to Shed Talk, my weekly magazine video series looking at the keeping, breeding and showing of cage birds, with a particular focus as usual on the exhibition style budgerigar. Well, first of all, I hope you all had a very Merry Christmas and that Santa brought you all that you were expecting, and if he didn't, I'm sure he brought you all that you deserve. Anyway, this episode, as I did say in the last one, likely to be slightly shorter just because, you know, it's a lead up. I'm filming this on the lead up to Christmas, that Christmas period, so it's a bit busy, as you might gather, and I really don't want to be filming over the whole of Christmas. Anyway, as I say, slightly shorter than usual, but that's not to say we don't have a fair bit to get to cover in this episode, because the first thing I'd like to do is talk about poorly birds, so birds that have got a little bit sick. And I do this because there are two birds currently in the shed that are not 100%, and I just wanted to talk through what I do when I have a bird that is struggling a little bit, I suppose would be the right thing to call it. So we'll start by looking at them, and then I thought I'd cover cage number 2, and the pied hen continues to frustrate me. We thought we got over the frustrations with her, having, you know, the fact that she didn't breed last year, and this year she's laid and we have full eggs. But she does continue to frustrate me, and we'll talk a little bit about the frustrations and what I'm trying to do to ease those frustrations a little bit in the second part of this episode. Right, what we will do now then is we'll crack straight on and talk about poorly birds. So I want to start by talking a little bit about a couple of poorly birds that I've had recently, and I suppose talk a bit about what I've done in terms of trying to make them comfortable in their recovery, or at least comfortable whilst they are unwell. So I've had two, like I say, and they're both for different reasons. So one of them's a budgerigar and one of them's a fife, and what I thought I'd do is talk initially about the budgerigar. So I do my normal checks when I'm in the shed and look at the birds just to observe them, as I guess most of us do. And there was a bird that looked really lethargic. You can see the bird. I'll get some pictures of her in the cage while I'm treating her, and she looked really lethargic. And so I took her out. And again, I noticed that she was very messy around the vent, very wet and damp, which is a sure sign, isn't it, that there's a problem with the bird. So I took her out of the cage, got some warm water and cleaned her up. So, you know, just wiped down the vent area, cleared any messy feathers out of the way, so at least if she started preening herself, she wouldn't be getting the mess in her mouth to make her even more ill. So I cleaned, like I say, I cleaned her off and cleaned away any of the messy feathers. Now, I know some people will have a dedicated hospital cage for their birds, and I think that's a really good idea. Unfortunately, I don't have that, and so I tend to use the show cage as an old show cage as my treatment cage, and I place that near to the heater that I have in here, so that at least they're getting a bit of extra warmth than they would do if they were just in the flight. So I placed her in the show cage. I put newspaper on the bottom of the show cage to make it easier to clean out. Popped her in there, popped her in with some plain feed and some water. I didn't want to give her any soft food or anything like that, just because obviously, you know, she's already got an upset stomach. I don't want to make it any worse, or at minimum she's got an upset stomach, and I didn't want to make that any worse. So popped her in there and left her nice and quietly in there. Now, I know the show cage is quite a small cage, but in fairness, when they you know, when a bird's ill, we know that they don't move around very much, do they? They tend to just sit on the bottom of the cage floor, normally near to where the seed is. So, and indeed, when I popped her in the cage, that's what she did. She sat on the floor, looked really miserable. And then, so my routine then was once a day, I took her out of the cage, cleaned her again, so cleaned the vent, washed her with some warm soapy water around the vent just to keep her nice and clean. While she was out, I popped her into a different cage, and I would then disinfected the show cage. So I wiped it down with some very light solution of bleach and water, wiped that down, cleaned the inside out, cleaned the perches off, and thoroughly cleaned the seed dish and the water drinker. Made sure that was all nice and clean, replaced the newspaper at the bottom of the cage, and popped her back into the cage. Whilst I was cleaning her, one of the things I noticed was that the top part of her beak had become a bit overgrown and it was making it difficult. And I don't know whether this was the cause of her becoming unwell, whether she just couldn't eat properly or whatever, I don't know. So I trimmed that off. I just took a pair of scissors to it and it just cut it away. And then with a small file, I filed it down so there weren't any rough edges around it. And again, like I say, then she was popped back into the show cage. I continued doing this for about 4 days, I think, in total. So getting her out, cleaning, disinfecting. After a couple of days, she had perked up. She was sat back on the perch. Still didn't look comfortable. So what I'm doing now is I've stopped cleaning her because there's no messy poos now. They're not solid yet, but they're not really messy either. So they're not completely solid, but not really messy either. And like I say, she's up on the perch and looking, you know, much more. I wouldn't say lively, but she's looking much more healthier than she did a few days ago. I will now continue to give the cage. I'm just changing the newspaper now. I'm not disinfecting everything anymore. And I'm not cleaning her anymore, like I say, but I'm just keeping an eye on her now. As soon as I'm happy that, and I can see it with fresh newspaper in there virtually every day, I can see, you know, what her droppings are like. And as soon as I see that they are fully solid and there's signs that she's, you know, not unwell, so she's not fluffing herself up, I will then take her back out of there and pop her back into the main flight. So that's that bird. I think she's recovering. It looks to me like she is. The pictures you've seen of her were from a couple of days ago. So, and since then she's looking, you know, I wouldn't say 100%, but she's looking a lot healthier than she has done. So, touch wood, we've got her. You may remember that bird actually. She was a bird that didn't look particularly well when we popped her into the showcase when we were thinking about pairing her up. So it may just be that she's getting a little bit old, but I don't think she is, but you know, she's not a massively old bird for my shed, but maybe, you know, some birds don't last as long as others, do they? Anyway, so that's that budgerigar. What I'll do now is talk about the Fife. So moving on to the Fife then, this is a little bit similar really, in that I went out and, as I normally do, to the finch, well, I just call it the Fife flight now because all the finches are in here, so the Fife flight, and one of them was on the ground, and again, not, you know, looking unwell, fluffed up and looking unwell. Now a lot of them, of the Fifes, when I go in the morning, are go down onto the floor and they pick around at the seed. So, but it clearly wasn't that that it just dropped down there. So I picked her up, and she felt, you know, there was no flying away, which is a sure sign that she was not very well, and she also felt, or the Fife felt very cold, so she felt cold to the hand. So again, I've brought her in here, and you can, again, I'll show you some pictures of her so you can see. I brought her in here, and I placed her into a Fife showcase just because it's a bit more familiar than the budgie showcases, and the perches are also a bit better for her anyway. And I popped her into the Fife cage with a little bit of water and a little bit of seed, both on the bottom of the cage, because she really did look unwell. And I must say, I didn't think she was going to make it. She remained completely fluffed up, not very happy. There was no signs of any, she wasn't messy around the vent area or anything like that. And I did wonder whether she's one of the older Fifes, so it might well be that she's reaching the end of her life, and the fact that we'd had a cold spell out, and that it just got to her, and it was just old age. I mean, again, I mentioned it with the budgie. These things happen, don't they? Birds do get old, and the colder weather has that effect on the older birds. So, but my thought process was that I would bring her in, put her in a cage, and probably just keep her comfortable for those what I thought was probably going to be the last few days, because she really, like I say, she really didn't look very well at all. I did the same as I do with the budgerigar, so I would make sure that the cage was thoroughly cleaned out when I came in. Once a day the cage would get a good clean out, and the seed dishes and the water would again get disinfected every single day. Now on day 2, again, she, there wasn't much sign that there was very much change in her. And like I say, I really didn't think that this Fife was going to make it. Every time I came into the shed, I quite expected to find that she had passed away. However, it's been 4 days now, I think, 4 or 5 days since I brought her in. She still doesn't look great, and you can see the clip of her. Again, this was taken probably a day ago. I think I filmed that clip of her. So she still doesn't look great, but she's feeding, she's drinking, she occasionally gets up onto the perch, but not very often. She spends most of her time sat on the floor at the seed dish, which is not a great sign. We all know that when the birds hang around, when they look lethargic, look unwell, and they're hanging around the seed dish, that's not a good sign. But she's hanging in there. My gut feeling is that this bird is just reaching the natural end of her life, but she may perk up a bit more. Again, she's near the heater, so that helps. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm not, like I say, my gut feeling is this bird isn't going to ever going to be able, it hasn't got that much longer, even if she does perk up. But we will, like I say, we'll wait and see how it goes. I'm looking at her now, and again, she's just sat at the seed dish. She eats regularly, and she's drinking okay. So I think at least she's comfortable in here, and far more so. I don't think she'd have lasted much more than a couple of more hours if I'd left her out in the outside shed, just because it was, the temperature in there is not particularly high. It's high enough for them, Fifes don't require a massive amount of temperature, but given that she had got cold, I don't think she had the energy to keep herself warm. So at least in here she's comfortable anyway. So I just thought I'd mention that what I do with the birds when they become a little bit unwell, and let me know what is it you do. If you've got a hospital cage, let me know whether you think it's a worthwhile investment. I'm pretty much sure it probably is, and I may have to think about either making one myself or purchasing one online. So that was the 2 poorly birds that we've got in here. The budgerigar I think is going to fully recover and go back in the flight. I don't think she's ever going to be 100%. She seems to go off colour really quite regularly. So, but I think she will be okay and will go back into the flight. The Fife, if she makes it through to the spring, she can go back out there once the weather warms up out there. But otherwise, I will keep her in here, I think, just to look after her. So, like I say, that's the two poorly birds. What I'd like to do now is talk about cage number 2, which is the pied hen that we were having so much luck with this year. Less so last year, so much luck with this year in terms of full eggs. So, what's happened in there? Well, before we look at the pied, thank you to all those of you who took the time to wish me a Merry Christmas. Always appreciated, and again, there were some people who thanked me for producing the videos over the year. It is, you know, it can be quite time consuming, so that feedback is always very much appreciated. If you're not yet a subscriber to the channel, then of course please subscribe. Make that your New Year's resolution, is to subscribe to the channel and to watch the videos. Of course, please do give the video, if you're enjoying it, of course, give it a big thumbs up. If you want early notifications, then do hit the bell icon. Once again, thank you for all your support throughout the year. Right, this pied. So the pied then, what can I say? Everything was going really well, wasn't it? So, you know, this pied had not produced anything last year, and we thought this year was her year, in that, you know, she went to nest, she produced eggs, the eggs were full, she sat them fine, and we were getting right to that stage where the eggs were due to hatch. The first egg hatched out great. She didn't feed it. I was sort of umming and ahhing at this stage about what do I do. She is a new mother, I suppose, you know, a maiden in terms of breeding. So I took this as a little bit of inexperience from her. So I let her carry on sitting. The second egg hatched, and once again, she didn't feed it and it died. So I was now left in this really awkward position where I still had 3 full eggs in this nest box, and a hen that clearly didn't understand that when the chicks hatched, she needed to feed them. So I was a little bit worried and was thinking about what I could do. Now, of course, in the last episode, I mentioned that the hen directly below had produced, I think it was 6 eggs. All of them were clear, and I was in the process, or about to begin the process of removing them. So that did give me an opportunity to move the eggs from box number 2, so from the pied's eggs, and risk them with a hen that, you know, had produced clear eggs, and as far as we know, you know, as far as she was concerned, there had been no piping coming from any of the eggs, so none of that, you know, the chick calling those just before they hatch. But I took the decision to move the next 2 eggs that were due to hatch from the nest box into there, and leave the third one in with the pied, just in case I needed to, you know, that this didn't work. Unfortunately, before the next egg hatched, the pied hen, decided to clear the nest box. So she kicked the last remaining full egg out. She actually smashed it, and the chick was almost at full term. So it was a real shame that I didn't move all 3 eggs. And she then, and the other eggs, or she removed another egg, she smashed another egg, and the remaining eggs in there were cold. So she had clearly decided that she wasn't going to rear any of the chicks. However, the first chick that I had moved, or the first egg that I had moved, hatched and the hen fed it. And you can see now, I'll show you a little clip from the nest box. This is the nest box of the below it, cage number 5. The second chick had also hatched and was fed. I really should have moved all 3 eggs. You know, hindsight, wonderful thing, isn't it? However, what we have got now are 2 chicks that are being fed by the hen in cage number 5 and look like she's going to, you know, treat these as her own. So the success, I suppose, is that we've got some chicks off of this pied to be raised, and it looks to me, I've seen the pied and the cockbird mating again, so it looks as if she might go down again. I'm then left with a dilemma of what do I do, because I'm going to be struggling to find, you know, somewhere to move her eggs to in the event that we do lay eggs and that they are full. But you know, that will be a problem for future me, won't it? Though, you know, it may be a nice problem to have. Anyway, I suppose that, you know, the disappointment is that this hen still is causing me problems. The good news is that we do have a couple of chicks off her, and that those chicks are being looked after reasonably well at the moment, touch wood, reasonably well by the hen in cage number 5. Let me know your thoughts on this problem. Would you have moved all 3 eggs, or would you have left one in there? You know, I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, but I really wish I'd moved that 3rd egg when I moved the next 2. But of course, the hen in here might have rejected the chicks anyway. So, however, there we go. At least we've got 2 chicks off of this pied, which is good news. I'm now going to let the hen raise those. I was thinking, there was a little bit of me before she kicked the egg out. In my back of my mind, I was thinking, if the hen in cage number 5 feeds the first chick when it hatches and gets it to about 3 or 4 days, whether I would move that chick back up there, because we know sometimes once a chick is calling loudly, you know, loudly enough, it stimulates the hen into feeding. That was my thought process, but you know, that decision was taken away from me, wasn't it? Right, anyway, that is the frustration of that pied, I suppose. You know, it's disappointing, and you know, but I suppose looking on the bright side, we've got 2 chicks who look like they're going to be raised by the other hen, the foster hen. Well, that is just about all we've got time for in this episode. My apologies if it is a little bit shorter. As I said at the beginning of the episode, I'm filming this on the lead up, right, you know, the last couple of days before Christmas, because I'm trying to get everything done before, and it, you know, all the editing done, so I can enjoy Christmas before it's published shortly afterwards. Anyway, enough of that. But until the next one, as always, please do stay safe. Enjoy your birds.